Today we talk to the funkiest drummer on planet Earth, hands down. Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the entree musician, and so are you, and so is this fabulous brother that we're going to have a great conversation with. Listen, if you don't know, you don't know. But if you don't know, then stick around because you're going to find out. This is going to be a great conversation with a drummer. And what he doesn't know, and we're going to talk about this, but what he doesn't know is he taught me how to play drums. He wasn't even way around, but I'm sitting there with my little drumsticks. I'm 9 years old, and here's this cat on actual proof, on thrust, on man-child, all this stuff that I'm absorbing from this artist, Herbie Hancock. Mike Clark is behind the kit, making it happen. Mike, how you doing, bro? Blessings to you, man.
Great. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm doing good, man. Everything is cool. You know, I'm still at it.
You are still at it. And I just mentioned one person, Herbie Hancock, of course, but that is not the sphere of your influence. John Scofield, Joe Henderson, Woody Shaw, Gil Evans, for crying out loud, Christian McBride, the list goes on and on and on. We have a lot to talk about, man.
Yeah, well, I've been at it for a minute, and go ahead, fire. I'm ready. I don't have anything in top of my mind right now, so I'm open. You know.
Well, we can absolutely go in, but I must say that at the time that we are recording this broadcast, it's only been about 72 hours since we've learned of the death of the great Al Foster. So we want to honor his memory, definitely. Do you just want to start with a memory? I know that you knew Al very well, Lenny White and the other great drummers. You have a memory you want to just open up for the great legacy of Al Foster?
I do. And I'm going to read, if I may, what I wrote on Facebook.
Sure,
because it
absolutely.
sums it up fairly honestly. Okay, here's what I wrote. I didn't know Al Foster very well. Somehow, though, I feel a great loss, as if being rammed by a giant semi and I'm riding in a Fiat. We worked opposite each other quite a bit when he was with Miles and I was with Herbie, and we had several friendly encounters. When I first moved to New York, I would hear him occasionally during his tipping period, you know, and he was just playing time and tipping, we call it, I'm sure. Just not a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He didn't play a lot of ideas at this point, but he swung with deep soul and the groove of doom. I mean, there's no way to get around this dude's quarter note. It was just completely funky, greasy, and nasty. A few years later, I would hear him completely stretching out, completely a different drummer, playing all kinds of jagged and radical ideas that I also might add required some serious drumming technique to pull off. Now, these ideas were obviously rooted in bebop, but still were totally his own and completely original. I would have never thought to play these things.
Wow.
He would change the way you look at something that we all do, and it would seem to be counterintuitive. And that, in other words, it's hard as hell to play. Excuse my language.
Okay.
He came to a few of my gigs as I played with Eddie Henderson, and we had some very nice exchanges. I saw him here and there in town, I saw him, when they opened up Miles Davis Way on the Upper West Side. We talked drums in Philly Joe several times and told each other lies and had fun. He was the last time I saw him, we both played a celebration for the great Lenny White. I happily played Red Clay for my longtime friend Lenny. And when I walked off the stage, there was Al Foster with a huge grin, and he kissed me on the cheek and complimented me. I was so happy to see him. We were both beaming. He played, and he played masterfully. He was a mainstay in New York as long as I have been here, and of course, before I ever got here. He was my generation's Elvin or Tony, and he was absolutely brilliant. I am saddened, but as it says in the Buddhist text, he completed his mission, and I might add, in style. One of the greatest ever to play the instrument. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Al. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, man. What wonderful memories, man. And the Giants continue to fall one by one, but they leave a blueprint, with the music and the legacy. And so, man, I want to definitely honor his memory and thank you so much for sharing your heart with us. You know, it's
You're
just
welcome.
amazing. Absolutely. Now, what we want to do, I guess, is ask at this point, who do you find to be your most valuable influences? And when I say to you, before you answer, my friend, when I say to you that I'm sitting there as a 9-year-old kid with my drumsticks trying to figure out actual proof, who were you sitting there with your drumsticks listening to? Who really did it for you?
Well, when I was 9 years old, my father, first of all, great question. My father was a drummer and he quit playing early, but we always had a drum set and he listened to jazz records constantly. It was his
I see.
party music and also blues records like Louis Jordan, Winoni Harris. He's older, of course, so it was that time period. But Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, Count Basie, Tommy Dorsey, Ella Fitzgerald,
Wow.
Louis Armstrong, not bebop, but pre-bop, big
Yeah.
band and swing and
Yeah.
blues. That was the thing. So there was also, I guess my brain must have assimilated this stuff because before I could walk, he's playing his music and he liked to drink and have his friends over constantly.
Hmm.
And so I walked over to the drums when I was about 4 or 5, and I immediately played the tom tom kind of sing, sing, sing solo, and it all made sense. Nobody showed me how to hold the sticks. And my dad was like, "What?" That night he took me. Yeah, he was overjoyed. My mother was too. They were like, "Oh my goodness, really?" So they took me to a nightclub where his buddies were playing, and I sat in and I played Sweet Georgia Brown. I
Wow.
couldn't I couldn't reach the pedals. I had to stand up to play. I was only four
Yeah.
or five, but I could already kind of play. So the
Hmm.
musicians were like, man, this dude's a natural. So they would come by the house and I started playing. And I didn't have lessons, but I played to the records. He moved the drum set into my bedroom and I shut the door for about 10, 12 years. On top of that, he would take me to nightclubs constantly
Hmm.
until I was about 16 and pay the drummer $5 or buy somebody a drink or whatever to get me to them allow me to sit in. And then because he was a railroad man and traveled, we started meeting musicians throughout America. So I started working as though I was a child working drummer, a solo
Wow.
novelty guy.
Yeah.
All right. Then now when I was 9, I was in my room and I was listening to Zooty Singleton, Joe Jones, Papa, Joe Jones,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, yeah, Louis Bellson, Gene Krupa, and Buddy Rich, and Lionel Hampton,
Hmm.
and whoever was on Louis Armstrong records. It must have been Big Sid, some of it,
Hmm.
and definitely Zooty Singleton was on some of it. And then my father saw a picture of he brought home an Art Blakey record. Now he didn't know who Art Blakey was. He just saw a guy on the cover with drumsticks and a drum set playing.
Wow.
And I went. Remember, I put it on, and it completely blew my mind. I somehow got it. I didn't know how to do it, but nobody had to explain anything. I was like, oh man, this is. It,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It just everything about it slayed me. And
Hmm.
that led me really as a child, to Charlie Parker and Max Roach and Philly Joe Jones. So those are my heroes. And then later, of course, Elvin and Tony,
Sure.
and later Jack. But now, by the time Elvin and Tony hit, had a I was working a lot, so I had my own voice
Hmm.
and musically, and but Max Roach was huge for me, as was Philly Joe. Still, these
Yeah.
guys. And then when I was about in my early 20s, I was now established in the Bay Area. I was working all jazz gigs 5 to 7 nights a week. That's how much work there was in those days.
Yeah.
And I met Lenny White.
Mm.
And Lenny White comes in with Joe Henderson, and I immediately flipped over his drumming. We met that night uh, and started. We had a great conversation. I could tell he was going to be my friend immediately. So I left the club. I was really knocked out by his drumming. And I went to my other friend's house, a great drummer's house, just to play cards. We used to have card games late night after the gig. And there was Lenny White at my friend's house. I'm like, what are you doing here, bro? And he goes like, well, so they somehow met, and he's going to stay at my friend's house. So we're still lifelong friends, me and Lenny White. I mean, from our 20s. And he was playing with Woody Shaw and Joe Henderson, who I later played with because of my relationship with him.
I see.
Yeah. And I stayed working out. Another guy came into my life who was also my dearest and closest friend. And even beyond that was Paul Jackson, a bass player. He was a upright jazz bass player. And he walked into my gig one night. I had an organ trio 4 nights a week. It was my gig. Mm-hmm. And Jackson, I didn't even know he played bass. He could play B3, and he sat in and blew it up. Wow. Oh yeah, you really played, man. And I was like, what? And this number. And that night when I got home from the gig, there was a car in my driveway. And I'm like, who's in my driveway, man? I live in Oakland, So I'm like, I got to tell this cat he's got to move his car. So this big dude gets out of the car. It's Paul Jackson. We got some wine with him, and he says, hey, man, I figured you'd be home, or I just met the guy like a few hours ago. So he came. Yeah, I said, come on in. So that from that night until the day that he passed, we were family, and his family and my family were entwined, and he was my best friend ever. Wow. And so I had all of these wonderful people in my life as a young man when I was young and wild and crazy, and so was Paul. And here comes Lenny White and several other guys. And I built this track record of playing with, all of these wonderful musicians. And then one day, I'm trying to cut to it. I'll make it really quick.
No, you're good. You're good.
I don't want to bogart the whole thing, but it's kind of a cool story. So now Paul and I share this crib out in East Oakland. We got this big pad, and it's the epicenter for all the musicians. We have a B3, drums, this, that. We got all the stuff. So we use it for a rehearsal hall / where we live.
Right.
And and Paul goes away to Lake Tahoe to work with Little Anthony and the Imperials, and he's an upright bass player, but they want an electric bass. Paul also, being the entrepreneur he is, manages a Sherman and Clay, a music store in Oakland.
Wow. So
he takes an electric bass out of the store, which is, of course, he can do. Nobody's going to get mad at him for that. And he doesn't really he's never really played it. And he just went up and did the gig. And he played a little bit of flamingo guitar, and that's why, and he transferred that onto the electric bass. And that's why his style is like it is.
Amazing.
Yeah. So while he's playing with Little Anthony, Herbie Hancock's manager walks in and hears Paul, and Paul knocks him out. And he asked Paul to audition for Herbie. So Paul gets the gig. So he comes over and he tells me, man, I'm going to do this record with Herbie Hancock. I'm like, solid. That's fantastic, man. So while he's recording with Herbie Hancock, I'm in Wally Hyder's studio upstairs recording with Vince Guaraldi. And I went down and heard Harvey Mason play Sly and Chameleon. And I'm like, this is great. So then one day, I'm almost to the end of the story here.
Herbie Hancock.
All right, thank you. So Herbie's calling over to the house all the time to talk to Paul. Paul is a very social animal, so he's never home. And I am. So I'm talking to Hancock all the time on the phone. He's a completely friendly, user-friendly, open guy. Yeah. And so we're having. I'm not thinking about playing with him. I'm just knocked out that I'm having conversations while I'm having my coffee with Herbie Hancock. Right now.
Exactly.
Well, one day, I'm good with that. And one day, Herbie says, "Man, Paul tells me you play some weird backwards kind of upside down funk." I said, "Well, funk's not my thing. I really am a kind of a bebop, post bop, blue note type of guy, but I do a lot of organ gigs in Oakland, so I got my own kind of way of playing the funk."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, come over and play with me. I want to hear you." I'm like, "What? Okay." Well, Paul and I went over there and I played my thing, and he hired me right on the spot.
Wow.
That's the story. Yeah.
Man,
Wow,
that's
that doesn't
beautiful.
happen, buddy. Like what? Anyway, well,
No, that's absolutely beautiful. But I want to go into the Herbie story a little bit more. But who was the very first professional musician that you played and toured with before you and Paul hooked up, set up your rehearsal hall and apartment? Were you out on the road with somebody before that?
many, many times, yes. Vince Guaraldi, I played with for years. There was a pool of jazz musicians around San Francisco that weren't famous. We played every night. We traveled
Hmm.
to Lake Tahoe. I also played rhythm and blues, soul music. I played some with Joe Tex, Bobby
Oh,
Freeman. I even played one or two tunes with Sly Stone, who lived in Vallejo at the time,
wow.
and which is right down the street from Oakland, not down the street, but 30, 40 miles.
Yeah.
Who else? Bunch of. I'm from Sacramento. Soul music was very popular, and because of my Max Roach under, I used to try to play Max's solos when I was in high school. I
Right.
could immediately play the James Brown beats without even learning them. I could hear it and play it almost.
Yeah.
And but why I got those gigs was because the jazz drummers made it sound more like Horace Silver or Hank Mobley. They didn't have that tight crack, and I was younger, and I had to deal with playing soul music, so I knew how to get that pop, and I had a good shuffle. I developed a
Yeah.
wicked shuffle, so that got me a lot of gigs playing funk. So I backed up a soul singer, Maxine Brown, who Steve
Mm,
Turre played bass on, by the way, the great
wow.
trombone player Steve.
Yes.
Uh, Joe Tex, Bobby Freeman. There was a kind. I played with Sam and Dave. I wasn't in these guys. But I played with Albert King, Freddie King, Jimmy Reed. I played with O.C. Smith. Jimmy Hughes. He had a hit out called "Steal Away." I played
Yeah.
with Del Clinton in Fort Worth, Texas. So I just was a working drummer. And in those days, if you had a good backbeat, you're going to be on those gigs. It wasn't a novelty. Like now, it's something to use those names, but at the time, many of us were doing those gigs. There was a pool of us that were doing this work.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, that's quite a background, man. That you didn't realize. I'm sure you didn't. Paul Jackson didn't realize that you guys were actually making history for the rest of us. I mean, we're talking about iconic records, iconic songs that are standards today, and you're right in the
No,
middle of all that.
nobody thought of that. We're just trying to do the gig the way we like
Wow.
to do it, though.
Wow.
That was
Wow.
it. I wasn't trying to be all that in a bag of chips. I just want a phone call. I want to do Herbie a good job. You know, I wasn't going to be Elvin. I didn't see myself, but I knew what I had in the tank, so I used it. Best as I
Yeah.
could.
That's absolutely on point, man. I have to say this. As again, I'm sitting there 9 years old and I'm thinking about actual proof. I'm thinking about the fact that in Youngstown, Ohio, if you're going to call yourself a drummer, we're talking 9, 10, 11 years old, don't call yourself a drummer unless you can play thrust. If you can't play thrust, then put the sticks down. It's all over. Now, I was talking to Byron Miller, had the opportunity to have a conversation with him on this platform, and bass player who played with Herbie later in the game. But he says on every Herbie date, Herbie would say, "Well, here's the music. How do you guys want to play this?" He said he was very open in his
Yeah.
approach. Was he that way? I mean, who came up with that funky intro to thrust? Did Herbie just say, "Yo, man, go with it, bring it in," or did he write out the part for you? What happened?
He didn't write anything. He
No.
he said he said here's how the tune goes. Kind of. It was skeleton arrangements. It wasn't all mapped out.
I see.
And actual proof was fully written. We didn't read it
Okay.
though. I can't. I
Okay.
couldn't read stuff at that time. I could read it now, but not in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I grew up reading like Basie charts. So you couldn't read a wall of 16th notes like that. I mean, I could sort of find my way through,
Sure.
but yeah, but that was nobody did that yet. But no, I made up my beats. That's all me. And Hancock would say, well, here's the tune, and here's the tempo, and that was it. Every once in a while he'd make a little suggestion, like maybe stay on the hi-hat until we get to part letter B or something. Well, there wasn't any until we get to the bridge.
Yeah.
And very few suggestions. It was early on, so we were making it all. I mean, we knew the arrangement, that's for sure. We knew the arrangement. He would talk it down completely. He was totally relaxed, man. He wasn't like breaking anybody's chops. He was totally chill, and it was all experimental. And we were lighting him up as he was lighting us up. Like, we were playing stuff he hadn't heard. And of course, this is Herbie Hancock, so we're getting all. I mean, this guy's a genius. So we're hearing all that for the first time, and it's like, oh my goodness, up close and personal, man. Not on a record,
Right.
Woo! And but those were. I didn't really have a drum sound. Nobody talked to me about a studio drum sound. I just took my stuff out of the trunk, brought it in, set it up, and played it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
I know you're playing Gretsch drums now, but what kit were you playing during those sessions?
Well, I started Lenny White, joined Chick Corea, and he said, man, I need a big drum set. My little Gretsch set that I use, the blonde Gretsch set that I use with Freddie Hubbard, it's not going to, nobody will even hear me out there because these guys are playing loud. So we went over to Leo's Music. Lenny was on the West Coast, and we found him a 5 set, a big see-through set. And I bought his Gretsch set.
Okay.
And then he used that money as a down payment for whatever it cost him to get this big 5 set that he started when he first started with. I don't think they called it Return to Forever yet. I started with Hancock on that Gretsch set on Lenny's little 18-inch jazz set, 2 tom-toms.
Yeah.
And then his band got louder and more monitors, and now we're playing big joints. I procured some great big, well, not great big, but a 22-inch bass drum and this type of thing, Pearl drum set. And then I went to Sonar, but I always had a couple of Gretsch jazz kits in my house. And I still do. I got one here behind us, and I got one in the storage room. So I've always, that's my thing, Yeah. But for a while, these kind of jazz sets, they're too small to play in those loud bands,
Gotcha. You do you do any programming, or do you have an electric kit that rolling or anything like that you messed around with just for curiosity?
No, I just stay with what I got. No, I don't do any of that. And I make a lot of. Hello, darling. Thank you. I make a lot of jazz records, and not funk records, jazz records. And they're not that heralded. They're on small labels, but I get paid. But also, I love playing jazz music. It just slays me like it did when I was 8 years old. Knocks me cold. Still, it's like the first time every time.
Yeah.
I'm like,
wow.
Man, I don't know why my brain handles it like that, but. So I just keep with just the natural old drum thing that I came up with. I've managed to make a living my entire life that way. So I was never interested. I'm not down on it. It's just not my thing,
Sure. Well, no, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. Go with what you know. Well, let me ask you some rapid fire questions with respect to the broad spectrum of artists that you worked for, and then I want to get into some of your personal music, some of the albums that you did, because I'm interested in that as well. But when I say a name like Joe Henderson, like, what would be the first word that would come to your mind as you're on a Joe Henderson date?
Well, listening. Like, when you play with Joe, you got to really listen to him carefully. He wasn't that loud of a saxophone player, but his music required total conversation.
Very cool. Oscar Brown Jr.
Man, a lesson in soul, man. That's the only thing I can say. Like, every lick, every breath, every word, all of it. Like, whoa, fantastic. And he also taught me about playing the stock market.
Well, there you go. That helps.
Yeah, it worked a little bit, sort of.
Absolutely. What about Vince Guaraldi? You played with him early on.
A very beautiful cat, a dear, dear friend. We were friends even when we weren't, we were just friends. I
Hmm.
mean, we played together a lot, but we were friends. He was my friend. And he was a sweet cat and he could swing like Wynton Kelly. Most of the people know him from the Charlie Brown stuff, but he was a
Sure.
hard. And the dude played with Bird a little bit. I mean, he could swing, man, New York style, and he lived in the Bay Area. He had a big beat, and loved the blues, and a good cat. The worst temper of anybody I've ever met in my life. He would go from 0 to 100 like within a nanosecond, and it would be like, whoa. I mean, he would blow, but then two
Wow.
seconds later, he was cool.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. That that
very.
that that's the only person that could write a Charlie Brown score to a person
I
with
would
that type of.
I would agree with that. Yeah, yeah. And he was
What
also
about?
like, go ahead,
Go ahead. No, sir.
like Hancock when we did those. When I did whatever I did with Charlie Brown, stuff like that. We walked in. You just go in. You don't know what you're going to play. There's no chart, and he goes, give me a little something right here, and 3, 4, and you're in.
That's
And
it.
that's how things. And that's it. And then you just listen and follow and do your best. That's it. It was very chill, man. You know. You know.
Absolutely. What
Yeah.
about Wayne Shorter? He left us recently. You're playing with him. What would be the one or two words that you would have to
Genius.
describe him? Mm.
Genius. Period. Genius. You know. Also, forward. If the forward thinking is not a forward thinking enough word for this man, you
Hmm.
know, I didn't know him that well, and I only played with him a few times. I'm a Buddhist, and we did a lot of chanting with him and Tina
Hmm.
Turner and Herbie when they were first starting to chant.
Hmm.
And Tina was going through all that stuff alike, and down at Herbie's house. And well, I mean, his writing, his composition. I mean, man, this guy, his brain should be devoted to science. Him and Hancock, two
Yeah.
actual geniuses that I was able to play with, which,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not in that league, man. Those cats are in another. It's like you're playing in a basketball team, and there's a couple of cats on the team that can do stuff that none of the rest of the team can do.
And then they flowed so freely, though. Wayne, they were good friends. Obviously, you could tell it, and the chemistry just melted out on stage into the audience, and you really were transformed. I mean, that's just the
Yeah.
best way to
I
put
I
that.
mean, sometimes I'd play with Hancock, and one time this happened with Wayne, but I played a lot with Hancock, a lot. I mean, at thousands of gigs. So, what I have to say is spiritually, I don't use that word very often in music because it's kind of like, please, everybody
Well,
uses it, but it
yeah,
is a
I understand.
it, yeah, but it is real. But he would change the Hancock could bring the spirit and the energy up so high that it would change the molecules in the room, and the
I
air
agree.
would something else would happen, and you're part of it, and you're like, whoa, I don't believe what I'm experiencing right now. Billy
Yeah.
Hart and I talk about it sometimes, and it's just like Eddie Henderson and I talk about this. Hancock, not many can do that I'm
Yeah.
aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we just saw him last year in Pittsburgh. My wife and I had the opportunity to meet him backstage, and after just setting the entire audience on fire, I mean, his spirit was just on point, and I felt a little embarrassed. It seemed like he would have talked to us for about 2 hours, but I want to be respectful of his time. But he never seemed rushed. He never seemed like, "Hey, I'm Herbie Hancock. Let me sign your book and get out of here." He was very affable, very approachable, and just even kill, man. But he
I always,
did change. He changed the molecules in the room. That's for sure,
I
without
can
fail.
dig it. Listen, I always thought of him as not only a genius of music and mathematics and just about anything he decides to do, but a genius of humanity.
Yeah.
This dude cares about people and the earth and the world, and
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. That's not an opinion, man. I lived with a guy for almost 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
He devoted his life to that.
Absolutely understood. Well, just a few more. I don't want to bore you or rattle you, but this is the only place that this could be really shot forth, whereby these people that we don't know, and you had the opportunity to grace their sessions, grace their shows with your talent. What was the symmetry between you two? John Scofield is another name that comes to mind. Like, what was that experience about? Because he's an
Well,
explorer.
his name is on my resume. I think I played with Sko maybe 3 times in my life. And one time I played with him. Oh wow, Donald Harrison's drummer just sent me a note. Brian Richburg, a great drummer. I'm going to see him in New Orleans. Well, Dr. Lonnie Smith and John Scofield and I played maybe a set together one time. I played a few times with Sko, just briefly, a couple of tunes here, a couple of tunes there.
Yeah.
But this particular time, we were playing with Dr. Lonnie, the organ player, and we were on a cruise, and we played Stormy Monday Blues. Now, Stormy Monday Blues, I know every guitar background in Stormy Monday from the Bobby Bland version, because I had when I was young, I had to cover that song, and we had to do it just like the record. That's what they demanded of us. So I know Wayne Henderson, I believe that guitar player's name is. I actually played 3 nights with Wayne, but I know every guitar lick on there. And I'm probably one of the few guys left that knows that. It's just something, you just know some stuff. Because I had the guitar player on this gig I was on, had to learn all that. And he was in my ear every night for months after months, 5 nights a week. So we played Stormy Monday. And John Scofield, I know him from more of a jazz and also a fusion type of thing. I know he liked the blues because I spoke to him, but he played every background from Stormy Monday that Wayne Henderson, and it knocked me out. So, I was floored. Just the fact that he knew it and he played it right on the money. And I saw him in the airport recently. Me and Craig Handy were traveling somewhere, and here's John Scofield, and he joins us for coffee or whatever. And I told him, I said, Sco, I got to tell you, man, you slayed me with Stormy Monday. And he goes, I know exactly what you're talking about, that time with Lonnie. And I'm like, yeah, man, you killed me. And yeah. So I just know he's playing opposite him some. He's an amazing artist, man, John Scofield. Please, he's at the top. He's one of the cats, man.
Absolutely. One of my favorite albums features George Duke, Billy Cobham on drums, John Scofield on guitar. I'm trying to think who the bassist was, but it's a live album, and Scofield is just left of center, man. He's just crazy.
Oh, bro, I played opposite that band.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I heard them live every night. I think it was Alfonso Johnson. Is that possible?
Alfonso, yeah, that's correct. On bass, that's correct. Absolutely.
They were on fire, man.
Yeah.
Cobham was storming the Bastille. It was ridiculous. All of them.
Yeah.
Crazy. And it was funky, too. All of it.
Definitely. Anytime George is going to be in the room, it's got to be funky. He's coming from, the Joe Zawinul type and Frank Zappa, ideas, but he is laying that tight funk down underneath the current of all that stuff that's going on,
Absolutely. I just did a record that's coming out called Itai Doshin, and it features Eddie Henderson, my friend, Craig Handy, Henry the Skipper Franklin, a great bass player from LA, and Patrice Rushen on piano. And we're doing a run of gigs out there. We're doing SF Jazz October 4th and 5th, and Kooumba down in Santa Cruz, and then we're making a second record, but this time with Essiet on the bass, but Patrice on piano. And Patrice and I had played together in the early 70s on a couple of Eddie Henderson's records called Heritage.
Wow. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I've had a lot of coffee this morning. I'm fighting this asthma, so I'm giving some strong coffee. But I also want to say I have a record coming out called Standard Deviations as a co-leader with a great tenor player named Michael Zilber. It'll be out. My record with Patrice will be out October 3rd, which is my birthday, but this one's coming out June 4th, maybe. I can't remember. But Standard Deviations, a jazz record, a modern look at swinging, you know.
Wow. Absolutely. Well, first of all, happy birthday on your upcoming. You want to share your age with us youngins as to how
Yeah,
old you would be blessed
I'm
to be?
I'm 78. I'm only 25, but you can see it's been a little rough by looking at me. I'm 78 years old.
Very cool. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, God bless you, man. Let's talk a little bit about your solo stuff. You're talking about the stuff that's coming out and what you're working on. It's interesting to know to be a side guy or side musician for all of these names that we just walked through, and then to come to the microphone and it's your date, it's your
Yeah.
gig. How do you prepare for that? What are you thinking? What's emanating from your spirit to be able to translate from all of this experience you had for being that guy that we saw with Christian McBride or Gil Evans, and now this is Mike Clark front and center? What's the energy like?
I think swinging. I'm in love with swinging and I'm in love with the blues and I love jazz music. So it's not so much the drumming. I mean, I'm going to play. I'm not going to just play time. I'm going to get into it. But it's the act of playing jazz, whether I'm playing a ballad with brushes or whether I'm blowing it up and playing loud and bashing and crashing and a lot of ideas, or just simply tipping on the right cymbal, all of that floors me. So that's what knocks me out, you know. So I get a guy that writes. I not just one guy, but I find an arranger to arrange the music that I like and that I'm thinking about. I'd be thinking about Thelonious Monk or Lee Morgan. I don't know, whatever kind of the groove I'm in. It can be real modern and out, or it can be really kind of 1950s. I don't know.
Gotcha.
I just go in and out of different stuff because I can. And
Yeah.
whatever kind of groove, whatever kind of thing I'm hearing, if an opportunity comes up to lead a band, or if I feel like making an opportunity to come up to lead a band, then the music has to drive it. It's not just I want to do a gig, you know.
Gotcha.
Um, uh, I'm also a co-leader with the great Bill Summers in the Headhunters. So we're still traveling.
Right.
That band consists of different people. We use Chris Severin out of New Orleans on bass, Kyle Roussel also out of New Orleans, or Shea Pierre, whoever's available on the piano.
Gotcha.
And Donald Harrison has been doing it for years, and right now he's real busy, so we use Craig Handy. And Bill and I are the leaders of this band for 50 years. We've been playing together over 50 years. So we still tour. We just played in a cavern, a cave in Tennessee a few days ago.
Wow.
Yeah, outside of Nashville, in some cave. There was a bunch of kids there, an audience, and we're in a cave. I'm like, okay. You know, like, so we go to
hang the
Europe.
lights, hang the lights. Let's go, right?
Oh, yeah, light lights and all of that. And they were deep in the cave, not just at the mouth of the cave. They took us in golf carts, man. But
wow.
yeah, but also we have a record that just was released last year called The Stunt Man, which I feel is quite good. And I don't like everything I do just because I'm on it. I'm way past all that. But I think this record is cool. And it's on Rope-A-Dope, and it's called The Stunt Man. Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to have to check that out. I haven't yet availed myself to that recording. But would you bring up a good point with Rope-A-Dope? You know, what's your approach to writing and what's your approach to production? This is after the sticks are down, you know, or before you pick them up. What's your approach as you're writing or crafting out a song?
Well, here's what we did the last time. This is one approach. We all flew to Wally Hyder's, the place I told you where I first heard Harvey Mason playing with Herbie, because all of our careers started in that studio.
Okay.
So we made a deal with them, and we all flew there. and we had every studio in the studio, like 4 or 5 different studios. So we got a couple of guys writing in one studio, a couple of guys recording rhythm tracks in another studio, some guys laying some overdubs or synth parts in another studio, and we're all writing and collectively putting it together. And so that's what we did, and it worked. And then of course sometimes uh, 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 pre-production, I just get the music I like, and usually it's a jazz gig, so it's fairly natural. So I go in and record it. But I've been recording for Wide Hive Records out in Berkeley, California, which is a futuristic-looking label. He's willing to take a chance and do some wild music, different stuff. And I put out one album last year called Coz and Rufo, Flirting with the Avant-Garde, for this guy. And Greg Howe is his name. He's a forward-looking guy, and so. But as far as production, I'm pretty natural. Like I do the drumming. I just go in and I mix. I have produced a couple of records, but I go in and I mix, and I give my opinion on things. Or if I'm in the booth when guys are recording something and I hear them do something that I think would work better, I tell them, hey, why don't you try this? Or please don't do that if it's my date.
Sure.
Just stuff like that. I don't get, I don't know the board and what microphones and what this and that. And I just know what I hear. So I'm still kind of flying by radar, and I'm still improvising.
Yeah.
Everything. You know,
I may say this as somewhat of an elitist perspective, but it's the only viewpoint I have as a drummer. I think that we're listening to everything around us. I think I heard Marcus Miller, the bassist, make this point of view that he really looks to his drummers when he's in the studio to make sure that everything's balanced, because we're paying attention to everything that's going around. So it really does make us better producers in that regard. I'm not trying to be that elitist, but I'm saying, with your worldview, you're constantly hearing things. You're at the epicenter of what's going on, and you have to accent certain things that the other musicians are doing. So it does really put you in a sweet spot when you're at the recording studio saying, you don't know about the 5K or the 3K or whatever, but that doesn't sound right. Maybe you should do this, right?
Exactly. Well, sitting back there playing the drums, like you say, also the balance, the levels of how things should be.
Correct.
Some things shouldn't be overriding other things. You want all the voices to work, to be heard, and accounted for. I like the whole puzzle to fit together. If one guy takes over, there's a time and place for everything, but usually if one guy is the dominant voice for a record with 7 or 8 cuts, that can get boring, man. And it's asking a lot of the other musicians, and it's asking a lot of the listener for one person to go, hey, watch me.
Right.
I'd rather be watching.
You're right. You're right. It's just, it's like a baseball team. We're all in it together. Everybody's going to get their turn at bat, but we're all in this together, so keep that balance on point. Are there any younger drummers that are coming up that are really impressing you? And, in your travels, you're going, hey, watch out for that kid. He's going to be phenomenal.
Well, I really like Joe Dyson and Brian Richburg. These two cats are really, I really like them a lot because they can swing and they can improvise and they know the language. And Donald Harrison helped develop these guys. They're both from New Orleans. They live up here now in New York. And I like those guys a lot. I have, I see people online all the time. I saw some kid, it looked like maybe he was in Africa. I don't know, or maybe Jamaica. I don't know. He was playing on a mattress and a pillow. I'll say this. He's killing.
Wow.
The guy must be 9 years old. And he's got stupid chops, man, and ideas. And he doesn't need, I mean, I'm sure he's got a drum set somewhere, but this was fine without it's ridiculous. I'm like,
Amazing.
really? And so hear young people that can really play all the time. As far as jazz goes, right now the guys that I find most interesting out of the newer guys were those two cats I just mentioned. I find it interesting for me to sit and listen to.
Understood. Absolutely. Well, I could talk to you for 100 more years. I'm delighted that you decided to have this conversation with us. And I would just like to ask, I mean, with the hundreds of interviews that you've done already, this is a question I always ask every guest. Perhaps you thought, okay, hey, this guy Jerry's going to interview me for his podcast. I know he's going to ask me this question because everybody always does, but I didn't. So, can you answer the unasked question?
Yeah, sure. What I played on Actual Proof was a combination of I took, this is going to sound a little different than what somebody might take. I took Max, Philly Joe, Roy Haynes, Elvin, Tony, a little bit of Lenny, and my own whatever I've been doing all my life, my sensibility, and threw it over on the hi-hat, the snare drum, and bass drum. But it all comes from jazz language. It's not out of James Brown. A little bit of it is, but and so I took that and rocked the hi-hat, and also I was on an organ gig I still do a lot of organ gigs. I'm a formidable organ drummer because I grew up on that.
Yeah.
And so one time we had a singer, and the organ player and her fell out, and he fired her. So they got a new singer who did not play tambourine. Now, I was used to that tambourine going all the time. So when it was not there, I automatically started filling in ghost notes. Nobody called it 16th notes or ghost notes. Nobody even called it anything in those days.
Wow.
So that's how I started that. I didn't get that from anybody but from this gig. Wow. And although I'm not the only one that did it, but that's how I came to it. It came from a musical. So that's in there. And once you get to the ride cymbal, all bets are off. Then you're playing, man. And especially with Hancock breathing all that fire, you're in the middle of the fire, bro. You got to play. So we're listening to every note everybody's doing. It's like fighting a boxing, man. You're moving, and that's what it was. I don't know what the notes were and what drum I hit and whether it was on the 32nd or the up of the. I don't think like that. I didn't learn like that. I respect that, but that's not where I'm coming from.
Man, that's absolutely excellent. Absolutely. Well, is there any advice that you would give a young 9-year-old who's listening to this going, hey, I heard of Actual Proof, and they're sitting there with their sticks? What advice would you give this kid?
I would say my advice is this. Play with all the live humans you can. It's not so easy because there's not a lot of gigs right now. Maybe that will change. But you get your experience playing. The practice room is great for technique and learning grooves and getting your thing together. But where you really get it together is playing with band.
Yeah.
And that's where you find out what's working and what's not. Also, never give up your dream. If you know what you want to do and you know you can do it, I don't care what anybody says. Don't let anybody, your best friend, whoever, talk you out of it, man. Beautiful. I never say, I know the word I was trying to say right there. Never say die. That's not what it was. Never give up your dream. That's it, period. Never give up, no matter what. And when they say no matter what, it means no matter what.
It means no matter what.
Yeah.
Any obstacles, any detours, whatever you got to go around to get to it, make sure that you do it and you never lay the drumsticks down.
That's exactly right.
That's absolutely beautiful. Well, I'm so grateful to you, Mike. People know that they can get at you at mikeclark.com. I know that your email address is there and available, and you were very accessible to me on TikTok. So thank you very much, man, for just opening up the door and for us to have this conversation.
I saw you on there, what you were talking about. I'm like, I'm going to write in this cat. You know what I mean? Yeah, I have a new website, by the way, drummermikeclark.com. I think you can get there that way. I'm kind of proud of it. It's not, I mean, not all the dates are on there and all that, but that takes a lot of work to do all that.
Yeah, sure, sure. That's why we call it the entree musician. You have to do it all, right? So you'll make it happen.
Manager, the roadie.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. And it won't be the last time that we have a conversation, man. Many blessings to you. I know you got these dates coming up with Patrice Rushen and all of them. So be blessed on them, man, and make that fire happen.
Thank you, brother. It's honored to be here, and this was a blast. Great questions. Thank you.
I appreciate it. God bless you, man. That's going to do it for this episode of the Entre Musician Podcast. Mike Clark. I would say he is the funkiest drummer on earth right now, hands down. If you don't believe me, go back and listen to Thrust. Go back and listen to Man Child. Go back and listen to Actual Proof and prove me wrong. Email me, okay? My name is Jerry B. I am the Entre Musician, and as I always say, so are you. We will see you again next time. God bless.